Greetings, brothers and sisters. Hello and welcome back to Eva's House of Spirit. For those of you who are newer to this channel, I'm Eva, and I'm drinking a Sagres Mini. It's a great Portuguese beer, the light one, of course. I personally don't like the dark. I don't like dark beers in general, but I don't like the dark Sagres. To me, it tastes too much like Guinness. It's not my thing, but that's neither here nor there. Also, before I get started on the topic I wanted to talk about in this video, I came out here into the backyard and I'm like, kind of doing my thing, getting ready to make this video, and I look down in the grass and I see something red, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And it was a little wild strawberry. Look how cute that is. It's like a little ball. That's the cutest thing ever. And yeah, the leaves, I picked a leaf to show you what the leaves look like. That's what the leaves of wild strawberries look like, just like, actual strawberry leaves. And that's how the cute little strawberries look. And they're actually kind of like all sprinkled, all peppered around the yard. And I thought that was really cute. I just wanted to show that to you before I got into the topic. So the topic I want to talk about today, I actually wasn't sure what I wanted to talk about for my next video for a little while, That's why yesterday went by. I didn't really make another video because I try to bring forth content that really either makes you think or gives you something that can enrich your experience and your journey. And so I usually try to think, like, what topics really do I want to talk about? Do I think can give you something beneficial? What is what are the words I'm looking for? I guess I sort of ask myself, like, what is the most productive thing that I can sort of bring to the table? No pun intended. Actually, I'm sitting at a table. So I decided today that I would talk about the sort of human condition of like falling back into ego. Ego in itself, it's not inherently a bad thing. Your ego is who you are. It's your sort of, I guess you could say, attachment to your identity, which, so long as it's, I feel, expressed in a healthy way, you can absolutely feel a sense of identity. You can sort of have an attachment to that. You can love being who you are. I don't see anything wrong with that. I'm not saying that you should necessarily, though some people do strive to do this, I don't believe you should necessarily seek to completely forego like all attachments, even to ego, even to sort of your own way, or however you want to sort of, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying, you need to get rid of all that, but there is an interesting almost juxtaposition between the openness and the lightness of, for lack of a better word, spiritual enlightenment, but there seems to be the shadow thing that sort of happens a lot of times, not always, and I've seen it several times with people that become enlightened or that strive to become enlightened. There's this weird thing, I see it again and again and again, where people will start, from scratch, and they'll, sorry, I'm scratching my face. I keep feeling like, I don't know, little bugs or something flying around, like just kind of like itching my face. Maybe it's just, I don't know, me. So what I was saying is, I often see people that they strive to become spiritually enlightened. They believe that they are becoming spiritually enlightened, and oftentimes they are. They do acquire significant gifts, and they do make amazing strides, and they do build amazing lives. But strangely enough, there are certain cases where it's almost like absolute power corrupts absolutely. Let me take a sip of my beer and I shall explain. For example, I knew of this santero once. Well, I stand corrected. I'm not sure if he was a santero or a babalao. He was at some level of, priesthood or attainment in Santeria, for that matter. He was either a santero or he was a babalao. He had a botanica. And obviously he was doing well for a while. I imagine he must have worked his way up to, attain his business, to attain his, initiations, his necklaces and all that kind of stuff, his warriors, what have you. The heck was that noise behind me? Um, interesting that I was talking about necklaces and that happened. But anyway, so, he went through his initiatory periods, and, you go through the whole raising the money to open the business and the whole process of opening the business. I mean, I'm sure he really made some strides. He did some work and he really manifested that in his life. But strangely, after a time, he sort of became corrupt. Needless to say, he no longer has the Botanica. It has since closed its doors. That's one case. Another case I've seen, there was a guy that I knew where from the time he was a child, he had a lot of like metaphysical, paranormal sort of experiences. He became very fascinated with the occult. He studied, he, really worked his way through and up, and he cultivated a lot of really, I would say, profound and impressive gifts, and he did a lot of good things, and, he made a lot of strides. But there came a day when he received a warning from spirits that he was communicating with, and he didn't heed the warning. And what ended up happening was basically his family life became destroyed because he just didn't heed what he was told. So that's another case where he sort of got too big for his britches. He started believing he was almost like above reproach, almost like he just didn't take it seriously for whatever reason. His ego kind of like interfered, like, because I don't know, maybe it was because he was always hearing from other people, impressed praise, oh, you have so many gifts, it's so amazing what you can do, oh, I want to be more like you, things like that. And he sort of forgot his place, so to speak, and it was his own downfall, just like the, Santero or Babalao I mentioned earlier, who lost his Botanica because he too became corrupt. He started sort of like manipulating people and like trying to do things that weren't like right, you know what I mean? Not ethical. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to sit here and say that I believe in the rule of three, but I do believe in consequences. I do believe that, B follows A. So if you do something, something else is going to arise out of that. There is always something that comes out of the things you do, good or bad. And there are many people who believe in the concept of like attracts like. So, and witches too, when you're casting your spells, or other magical practitioners, you're putting out a certain vibration, and that's what you're pulling into your life. Well, here's the problem with people that become, spiritually enlightened or work towards spiritual enlightenment and then somehow fall back into the trap of like that human baseness, like that you almost can't help. Like, we all do it. Nobody's beyond that. I'm sure we've all done it. I've done it. You've done it. We all have our moments where we are not at our best and we just act like jerks, for lack of a better word. We become cruel, or we say things that are not right, or we come out with our sassy little attitude, or whatever it is. We sort of almost forget our place as spiritual beings, knowing sort of, how can I put it? Despite knowing that we are better than certain things, certain attitudes, certain judgments, certain actions, we will somehow kind of fall into it. Maybe it's because old habits die hard or something, I don't know. Or maybe, again, it's just a human thing. We all have a shadow side. Well, when we slide back into that without realizing it, when we start acting like jerks, when we start like, it's like we're putting out that vibration. We're like raising that vibration in ourselves. We're surrounding ourselves with that base vibration. So what happens when you put out a base vibration? You attract base energy. You attract base things. You attract baseness into your life. And then problems follow, such as, for example, the Santero or Babalao, who became corrupt, he became base. So what happened? Baseness. He lost his business. Such as the magical practitioner I was mentioning after the Babalao or Santero. He started believing almost like he was, oh, I got this. Almost like, he forgot that, like, hey, be humble and remember your place. He kind of forgot his place and he didn't heed the warning he was given. And baseness followed. Baseness came into his life because he was putting out that base vibration. So what I'm trying to say here is we should all, as seekers, as magical practitioners, whether we consider ourselves like witches or spiritual people or what have you, whatever we consider ourselves to be, we should all try to maintain sort of a level of awareness of that human condition that we all fall into. Watch your baseness, because when you start acting like your shit doesn't stink, when bad things begin to follow that, don't think that it's people giving you the evil eye. Don't think that it's people like, putting juju on you. It's not. What it is it's you being base, so you're calling base energy into your life. If you act like an asshole, you're telling the universe that's that base energy that you're vibrating at. So then base shit is going to come to you. Like attracts like. Problems will follow, disappointments will follow, whatever, all kind of things, fighting, whatever, it comes. It's kind of like what I say oftentimes. I've been saying this for years, and I believe this myself. You have to be careful, like, when you set your crows free, when they fly, they always come home to roost. It's not the rule of three, it's a cause and effect. Like, you put out that vibration, of like baseness, darkness, whatever. Not that dark necessarily always means base, but in this case, I'm using crows as a metaphor for baseness and like nastiness. When you let them fly, they're going to come home to roost. That energy you're putting out is going to come back to you. So I'm not saying you can never have those emotions. They're human emotions to have, but you may want to consider like where you're coming from and why. And I'm not telling you that you can never do negative works. I'm not saying that. I mean, if you want to, you can do whatever you want. If you want to walk around and think what you want to think or feel what you want to feel, that's entirely up to you. You do you, baby boo. It's your life. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But I'm letting you know that the energy you put out, you're calling that back to you. So if you're coming out as an awesome person and you're giving out awesome sort of energy, really, really vibing sort of with things like, for example, prosperity. If you're living in prosperity and you're living in love and you're living in happiness and you're doing all these things and you're really projecting like your awesome self, you're going to call more awesome energy into your life. But people that begin to, let's say, manipulate other people, or people that begin to attack those with less, or attack those who don't attack them, or like people that do fucked up shit, even if they feel they're totally justified, you know what? It's baseness. Because what are you gaining out of that? What do you gain out of manipulating somebody? What do you gain out of, and by manipulate, I'm not even talking about the concept of magical manipulation. I'm talking about like using shit like psychology and emotional bullshit to try to bend people to your will because you feel that you need that control for whatever reason. Doing it for just sheer twisted ends, whether you realize them or not. Or if you just walk around being a jerk, throwing nasty, hurtful shit at other people, whether you feel you're justified or not, that's base. If you really are spiritually enlightened, you will be more worried about what you're doing on your path, and you won't even give any thought to somebody else, and you won't be projecting hateful shit, nasty shit. You won't be manipulating people. You won't be like trying to control and mold and force and all that kind of crap. Instead, you'll just be like too busy doing things that are positive. You won't like be flying off the handle at people and, for lack of a better word, being an asshole. You know, you won't be being base. If you're truly like striving, at least, well, maybe, I'm sure we'll all do it at some point, but if you're constantly falling into that trap because you're not checking yourself, maybe you got a lot more to learn than you want to admit, you know. But that's basically the point of this video. My whole focus here is just to say, like, try to keep in mind, try to keep yourself in check, that no matter how amazing the results of your work become, no matter how wild, you know, and awesome things get on your journey into, like, you know, the metaphysical, the paranormal, the occult, what have you, no matter what cool shit you experience and amazing strides you make, no matter what, you know, talents and gifts you acquire, don't forget your place. Don't forget that you started at the bottom like everybody else. You know, you were born into this world as just this innocent little blank slate. You know, you started with nothing. We come into the world, not saying you didn't have gifts from birth, not saying you didn't have potential from birth, not saying you weren't a spiritual being, but, you know, you were like this raw blank slate that, you know, you grew, you changed, you had experiences, you eventually came to your realization that spirit had a place in your life, so you started down your path, you know, whatever, your magical or spiritual or whatever witchy path, your pagan path, however you want to describe it. You should have built that up for yourself. But it's not to say that because you've cultivated gifts or that you've reached a certain sort of point in your journey, like, or you've attained a certain amount of success or what have you, that doesn't mean you're better than anybody else. Everybody is everybody, and we're all individuals, different, going through our journeys at our own separate paces, in our own separate ways, for our own separate reasons, you know. But when you start to get that little, like, attitude where you're like sitting there like patting yourself on the back, and you start getting sassy and looking at other people, looking down your nose, like judging their life and acting like you have the authority to say that, you know, they're right or wrong in how they practice, or they're right or wrong in what they believe, or like they're right or wrong in this or that or the other, and you start really tearing them down and being nasty to those people, you're being base. And when you be base, you're going to call some nasty shit into your own life by yourself. It's going to be your own doing, and you're going to hurt yourself. You know, then you're going to be, oh, I got to start over again, and I got to do this, and I got to do that, I got to do all this work. Well, why have to go through all that work if you didn't, if you just kept yourself in check from the get-go? You know, why invite that base bullshit into your life? You know, but again, it's not saying that we don't all do it. We all do it. We all have done it. We all will probably at some point do it again. But I'm just suggesting maybe try to keep yourself in check so you're not like habitually like that, so you're not cultivating that as a constant in your life. Because if you're doing that, you're never really truly ever going to achieve happiness. You're never truly going to achieve what it is you're seeking. You're just always going to have this like roller coaster ride of like, oh, I'm doing good, oh, I've lost everything, oh, I'm doing good, oh, I've lost everything, oh, I'm doing good, I'm doing, you know. And it's not to say you won't have certain things that you will always be grateful for in your life, or it's not saying that you won't overall be in a better place than you were like before you started your journey. Not to say that, but why put yourself through more bullshit by inviting bullshit, by calling in that energy and manifesting that energy? Like, why even do that? So today's message is, though you may grow and learn and sort of develop your most awesome self through spirit, through magic, through whatever, you know, exploration into the paranormal and that, check yourself before you wreck yourself. You know, don't be your own worst enemy. Don't sabotage your shit by being an asshole needlessly, okay? That's today's message. And I could probably go on and continue citing examples because I've seen this several times. In fact, though, before I wrap up the video, I invite you all, this would be something fun. If you've seen this, if you've seen people that have like kind of risen up you know, sort of in their spiritual journey and sort of taking themselves from like a mundane or base life into awesomeness. And then they kind of became cocky and egotistical and fucked themselves up. Hey, I welcome your stories, you know, that don't name names maybe because like let's keep everybody like, you know, let's give them their privacy, but I would love to hear your experiences because I've seen this multiple times and I'm betting that a lot of you have seen this multiple times as well. It's a thing. Like attracts like. If you vibrate with baseness, you will call in baseness and you will call in problems. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this video and I'm going to finish my beer and enjoy the rest of my afternoon. And I'm going to wish you all blessed be and ashe. Until next time, you all stay awesome and bye-bye for now. Check yourself before you wreck yourself.